launch Visual Studio Code. Okay. So Python you can use as a object-oriented language. So in the Python, everything you can treat as object with its properties and methods. See, whenever we talk about object orientation, we use two words. One is object, the other one is a class. Object is nothing but instantiation of the class, and class is a blueprint of the object. Okay, or a class is a formal declaration of the object. We have two concepts in this. One is object, other one is class. Object is instantiation of the class, whereas class is a formal declaration of the object. Okay, so in object orientation, we use these words, the class and object, very much. To create an object, first you need to create a class. Once class is created, using that class, we also call it as type, we can create the object. Okay, I'll show you what exactly we can do with the classes and objects in this. I choose a language, then I go with the Python here. Followed by here, I would like to define first of all a class, then an object. I write something like this, class. I can put something like Sri class. Followed by, we require a colon, then I try to define some properties in this. So here I define the properties as put subject equal to say Python. Okay, then similarly, here session equal to Python 2. We put something like this. So this is called as a class. In this class, I have two attributes. So what are the attributes? One is subject, other one is session. Subject is Python, session is Python OOPS. Now I can create an object like this. I write here object 1. I put here Ray class. So this is called as an object. Once object is created, I can do something like this. Then I write here object 1 dot subject. Okay, similarly, I go with print object 1 dot, the next thing is session. So I have created here the basic class. A class is here Ray class. Then I have defined an object, object 1 equal to Sri class. So this is called as constructing an object. Okay, we are going to construct an object using the class and followed by its constructor. So Sri class is nothing but we are calling the constructor of the C class, Sri class. So that is called as a class. We have created here object 1. It is nothing but object. Now after that, what I do here, I'm trying to print the values in that. Okay, now let me run this. But before that, I save it, save as. Okay, in the G drive, go with. Okay, so Python CSV, CSV, yes, in this folder, save it. OOPS1.py. I would like to save it as OOPS.py. Now just go to command prompt. From command prompt, I want to invoke that. Then cd here, Python CSV. Here, just type Python followed by OOPS1.py. So it's printing there Python, and other thing is OOPS. So these two are called as attributes. Subject is an attribute and session is also nothing but an attribute, or we can call it as here member data. Whenever you take any class, there are two things. One is attributes, other one is actions or behavior, we say. Okay, tree class is nothing but a class here. In that we have two attributes. One is subject, other one is session. So they are nothing but properties of the class, or we say it as member data. There are two things associated with the class. One is data, other one nothing but methods. Together we write in the class, that is called as encapsulation. We call it as encapsulation. So here the class name is class tree class, subject is Python, and session is what here? Python OOPS I have written. So these two are nothing but attributes. They give the state for the class. Okay, so whenever you create an object here, object one, we are giving a state. It is nothing but subject is one state, session is another state. State means it's nothing but associated data with the object. Okay, so the class is here what? Tree class, subject is Python, and session is here Python OOPS. Then after that, I'm printing here object1.subject and object1.session. So here I created simple class. Okay, so I have created simple class. So with that class, here what I have done, I initialize it, then I'm printing the values there. Okay, similarly, here we have a constructor, that is default constructor. Now suppose we want to go for a user defined constructor. We can define like this: def followed by underscore underscore, then init, we say this is called as constructor. Init, then underscore underscore, followed by, in the brackets we put self. So self, then followed by here I put sub. The other thing is here SCS I put. So sub meaning is nothing but subject, and here SCS is nothing but session. Then after that I can write here self dot subject, this equal to, I put this as sub. Similarly, self dot say session equal to, I put this as SCS. So this way I have created here a constructor. Okay, so in the first case I have used the default constructor, but now what I do, I can define here, I can use the other constructor. Then I write here object2 equal to, I go with the tree class, then followed by here I pass the parameters. I put like C#, then I put here C# session. Like this I want to take here object2. Both are different objects. I press enter here, then I write print object2 dot, here it is subject. The same way we go with the print, then object2 dot session. Okay, so now when we run this, what difference we get, see here. Okay. So in this, what I do, I put Python. The next thing is here, we go with the Python OOPS. Like this, I set it. Now let me run this here. So indentation block it is expecting. It has to move towards right side inside the class. Okay. Now when I run here, it says Python OOPS C# session. So we have here two objects. The first object is object 1, second object is object 2. We have two objects. But what is the difference between the two? They are two different objects, not same object, they are two different objects. So first object is here, Sri class, in that the data is Python object OOPS, Python OOPS. The next one is what? Sri class, another object we are creating C# and C# session. So what is happening here? We have two different objects, but we are creating using the same class. Using same class name, we are creating here two objects, object 1 and object 2. Okay, so here, therefore, we created two objects. Both of them have attributes. So attribute is what here? Subject is an attribute, session is also an attribute. Subject is attribute and session is also an attribute. So therefore, here when you go with the object 1, what is happening? It's printing the subject as Python and Python says oops. The second one is printing C# and C# session. So like this, it's printing for us. So that is those two are nothing but attributes, and this is called as a constructor. We have gone with the def underscore init underscore self comma sub comma sys. So whenever you want to instantiate the object, we require their self. Self is nothing but this pointer. So in the C#, in the Java, or in the C++, we use this pointer. So this pointer means it points to current object. And whenever you create a constructor, we require there a self. Without self, you cannot create constructor. So self.subject meaning is what? It belongs to the current object. Similarly, self. When you say session, it belongs to the object, not to the class. Suppose you write here something like subject session. What happens? These are called as class level variables. They are called as class level variables. They are not object variables. They are called as class level variables. Now suppose I go in this manner here. Then what I do? Print. Then I write here Sri class dot followed by, I can write here, say subject. It's going to print that particular subject. That means whatever we have written, I put this as Python static like this. So Python static, it is here. When I run now, it is printing here Python static. So what is the difference between these two? Here object 1, object 2 are nothing but instances, whereas this is what static. It belongs to class, it doesn't belong to object. So in order to use this subject, you need not create object. Without creating object also you can use. But in order to use actually the instance data, like self.subject, self.session, we require their object. So these are called as here instance methods or instance data, whereas subject and session, whatever we have written, this is called as class level data. So they are nothing but class level data, subject and session. But when you come to self.subject, this is called as here instance data. Instance means when you create like this object 1, object 2, these two are different instances and data is different in these two things. But whenever you look at the class level, it's always going to be Python static. So we have two kinds of data in this. One is class level, other one is what? Instance data. Class data and instance data, you have two things. Okay. So when I say here def underscore underscore init underscore underscore, this means what? It is actually belonging to object, but this is belonging to here class. We have two types of data or methods as far as class is concerned. One is what? Class level, and other one is actually instance data. Instance data means without creating objects, you cannot use instance methods. Okay, but whenever you create actually a class, whenever you create some class level kind of thing, without creating object, you can use. Now suppose I go with here some version kind of thing. What I do here, I go for def, followed by I put here version. So version this is, then here is a function, then I go with this. Here what I do, return version, I write like this, version 1.0. Okay, version 1.0 I'm saying. Now when I print here, how can I print it? Using the class name I have to print, not with the method name. So I should write here print, then 3 class dot, what is the version I need to type. So in that case, it is going to be printing it as version 1.0. It prints it as version 1.0. Now let me once again execute this piece of code. What happens? It says version 1.0. So if you try to use this with object, this gives error. I cannot use this version with the object. If I try to use this with the object 2 dot version, what happens? See here. I go with object 2 dot version. What will happen? Let us see that. It is giving error. Okay, so you cannot use that. Object 2 dot version, if you try to use, it's nothing but error. We cannot use that particular thing. Similarly, here what happens? I can go with, see, what's happening in that case? It is actually unable to use that because it is not belonging to object, it's belonging to class. Since it's belonging to class, it cannot be used. Now what I do here, once again I define another version. Here I write def version, then followed by I put here self. I can put a self, then after that I try to return version 1.0, then this is instance method. I put like this instance method. But here what I put class level, class method. I put this as here class method. Now if I try to run this, what happens? See here what I'm doing, print 3 class dot version, and here what I say object 2 dot version. What difference we get? Let us try to run that. So instead of going with the version, I try to put here just ver command. Okay, then here I just go with the ver command, and here I should print it. Print. Then in this I put this as just ver. I close the bracket here. Okay, so now when I execute it, it says first thing is what here, version 1.0 class method, version 1.0 instance method. We get like this. First one is a class method, second one is actually instance method. That means when you create a method inside the class, if you use self keyword as a very first argument, that becomes what? Instance method. If you don't use any such self keyword, it means what? It is a class level method. Method can be class level or method can be instance. So class level meaning is what? Without creating any object you can use, that is called as class level. But here what is happening? We are creating first of all object, then we use. then that is called as here instance method. Object2.var, when I use, what is happening here? It is running this particular method. This method is being run here. This belongs to object, whereas version, when you take, this belongs to class. That means a class method, class level method, you can use without creating object. Mostly for helper functions we use it. But whenever you go with the instance method, first we need to create object, then we have to execute that. Okay, so class level methods and instance method. Class level method, without creating object, if you want to use, you can go with the class level method. Okay, but instance methods, without creating object, you cannot use instance method because it belongs to object. It doesn't belong to class. So that's the difference between the class level and instance methods. The subject and session are basically what these are class level attributes. Okay, but when you go with the self.subject and self.session, they belong to object. And here def version, if you look at this method, this function, this belongs to class, whereas def version self, this belongs to object. Okay, whenever you are using self as the first parameter, in that case what happens, that is going to be belonging to instance, object. It's not going to belong to class. That means to use this method, you need to first of all create object, then you can use. Suppose I try to use here using class name, what happens? See, print, what is the class name? It is tree class, then followed by, try to print here, just give var command. What happens? Let us see. I try to run this. Now what result we get? See here. Definitely it gives error because when I go with the var, no attribute var it says. Let me go with uppercase. Here it is actually lowercase I kept. I go with uppercase. Now when we run this, what we get? See in this. This time also it is saying error because this is belonging to object, not to the class. Therefore, it gives error here. Since there is no, since we used here a self keyword, you have to use only with the objects. You cannot use with the class. So these two are nothing but class level attributes, and the method is what? Class level method. But when you go with this is what? Object level. And init meaning is what? You use a constructor. This is called as a constructor. We are going to create here a constructor. So with the help of actually underscore init. And whenever you want to create an object, you call like this. Here see object1 equal to tree class python oops. So this is nothing but here data you are passing. Okay, this is what it is actually instance. That means you are calling here constructor. Two parameters we are going to call python and python oops. It's nothing but a constructor we are calling. And similarly, here we call the second time. So same object is getting created but different data. First object and second object, two different objects you are creating here. So using the same class, there are the two instances of the class. Object 1 is first instance, object 2 is second instance. We created two instances here. So first instance data is Python static. First instance data is what here? Python and Python oops. Okay, when you go with the second instance, the subject is what? C#, and the other thing is what there? You have session. It's nothing but C# session. So like this, we have here the two data. So first data is subject, second data is session. In the case of first object, we have it as Python and Python oops. And if you take object 2, it is C# and C# session. So like this, here we have the class. In this we have attributes and other thing is methods. Okay, some data or some attributes are static attributes. Other one are going to be here instance. Static meaning is what here? Class level. At the class level you can use without creating object which you can use. They are nothing but static data, or you can say class level data or class level method. Similarly, wherever we use self, so in the case of self, this is what it is going to be a object level. That means without creating object we cannot use. So there are two methods which are at object level. First one is what? var, other one is constructor. So in order to create object we use the constructor. So like this, here we do the object related programming.